What's going on, everybody? My name is John. You already know what it's going to be. It's going down in a few more seconds. Relentlessly Real Podcast. Let's go.
What's up, fam? It's your boy, Dr. Mike, and it's almost that time to get real, raw, and relatable. Looking forward to talking to y'all soon. Peace.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Terrence. Welcome back to another season of Relentlessly Real Podcast. So excited to have you all back. We got a lot of great stuff. Check us out.
You're now listening to The Real.
Man, I appreciate them dudes for talking about
The Raw.
Wait, they were talking about
The Relatable.
That's exactly what I've been going through.
The Relentlessly Real Podcast.
What's going on? What's going on? What's
Yo.
going on? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all awake and ready to have some great conversations and discussions. Try to ignore Terrence's
I don't think
his
you should
title.
ignore it.
Yeah, try
I
to
don't think
ignore
you
his
should
title
ignore it.
throughout this entire
I
podcast.
think you should embrace the truth.
For anyone that's not watching on YouTube or Facebook and you're maybe driving in your car, Terrence's title is "I'm Right, John is Wrong." That's really the title. Instead of having his name where it should be present, he has "I'm Right, John is Wrong." He says he's going to change it every single time we have a podcast. We're going to have a word of prayer for him a little bit later on in the podcast, just so you guys know. But listen, man, we're excited. Welcome to the Relentlessly Real Podcast, where we discuss real, raw, and relatable topics. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our podcast today. Let's kick this off with some introductions. My name is John.
My name's Mike.
And I'm right. John is wrong because I'm there.
You really going to stick with this? This is,
That's clearly setting the tone for today.
yeah, let me know the foolery that will take place. As you guys know, if you are listening to last week's episode, we had an amazing conversation about everything related to relationships and dating and men leading with the D, and it transferred or went from there into a whole nother conversation with the young ladies about what women bring to the table and all this other kind of stuff. And we're going to hop into that conversation in a little bit. But before we do any of those things, I would like to start off with the question of the day. You guys ready for the question of the day?
Never.
And listen, yes, if you could please go ahead and say good morning when you hop on, whatever, hop on the podcast or hop on Facebook or YouTube or what have you. Go ahead and just say good morning to us. We would love to say good morning back. But the question of the day is honestly a different one. My question is, were all, and this is not for you, Mike, not yet, but were all of your kids planned? Were all of your kids planned? And the answer, Terrence, is
Yes.
all of your kids were planned?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Mine weren't. That's why mine were not planned. And I won't say which one wasn't, but I'll just say the second one wasn't as planned as the first, if that makes sense. And then made me ask this other question, which, Mike, you can join in on this part of the conversation. It is, when you have sex, do you have music playing?
Yeah. So not all the time. That's like, nah, it's not all the time because that takes away from like you trying to do all the planning and stuff like that. You gotta have a soundtrack and stuff prepared every time you about to have sex. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a little bit much, right?
But I mean, in all honesty, like if you trying to set the mood, I know it ain't gonna be like imagine like putting on gospel or something like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that was my question. That was really my next question. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So that's not what we do. That's it. Just
Why not?
Weird, man.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, Fred Hammond had
down on me.
Come on.
Let this love just fall like rain.
Come on, T.
That sounds applicable to me.
Come on,
It
T.
sounds applicable, right?
I
So,
don't- you have a
so
really
we
great
talk about the
singing voice,
OG
too, Terrence. I
version,
didn't
or we
realize.
talk about Kanye's version? Because that's
That was
Either
a
way.
better. That was a better version. The one he did walk into the altar. That one.
Okay.
but Fred Hammond had a nice little rendition of sexual music that you could have sex with. So I don't know if you want to hit that particular jam.
I don't, cause okay, even though this is a gift from God, right? As far as like being married and being able to be joined, to be one with your wife or whatever like that, but yeah, listening to like praise is what I do.
Will feel more like a liturgical dance than it will sexual experience.
Like, that's just gonna get a little weird.
Got you, Terrence.
I am
about
the
you,
music.
sir?
I am the music. I make the music.
Oh, make them clap it. Make it clap. Not make it clap.
Good answer.
Remember that joke? Terrence says I do my own clappers music. All right,
I agree. Like it depends on like if it's. I feel like if it's planned, yeah. If it's not, but
yeah,
if it's impromptu.
I feel like once I don't know if this is bad. I feel like once I was married, I was like, I don't really need music like that. Like I was like, it's just like, especially when I had my first kid. After I had my first kid, I was like, yo, it's when you can get it. Like there is no time to play a tune. You know what I'm saying? It's literally like, yo, we got a few seconds. Let's see what's up. Yeah. But I mean, music is just not happening. You know what I'm saying? It's just not happening. I was wondering like how romantic, obviously February 14th is coming up quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, if you guys are planning anything or not or whatever.
Wait, is that Monday?
That is Monday. Wow. It's Valentine's Day.
Oh God.
So I don't know if you're gonna do anything for your spouse or not. But either way, I thought it was a great question to lead off with in terms of like, man, do you lay it down the music and put on candles, or do you just not have the time at all and you just it is what it is? I feel like it is what it is in most cases, though.
No, I mean, it is what it is. In my opinion, it is what it is in most cases. But like when you really trying to, I guess, do a little something different, spice it up or whatever, then yeah, you add a little flavor to it. You go ahead and
got it.
Add some music, a little candlelight, whatever like that. And it's not even like all within that same iteration of time. It could be something that you do prior to, like earlier in the day. You know what I'm saying? Hey,
yeah.
Maybe send a little gift or like little messages or sexting or whatever like that, ahead of time, like just to prep for something later. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yep. Yeah. So I hear you, and I feel what you're saying, and I think it's a great thing, to try to incorporate a little spiciness when you can. But otherwise, as far as the planning of the kids thing, I was like, man, when I thought about it, I was like, the way I found out about my second one, I was literally not even home. I was like somewhere traveling, playing in the band or whatever, and Jovita just was like, and she wasn't even trying to tell me for real. She was like, because he's traveling, and I was like, talking to her about something else, talking about going on a cruise, and I think this is before COVID broke out and all that other stuff, but talking about her about the cruises and whatever, and she was like, I don't know, because she remember Zika, y'all remember that? Was it Zika? So Zika was heavy, and babies getting Zika, and they would die and all that crap. And I was like, Davida was like, oh, I don't know if we can go on this trip because this trip coming up because Zika's out there. And I'm like, why the heck do we care about Zika? We don't have no babies. We only got one. And then she was like, well, I didn't want to tell you over the phone. And I was like, yo, please don't tell me you pregnant. You know what I mean? Please. Then she was like, yeah, she's pregnant. So that was
yes. So hilarious.
And look, then I had to go back into the room I was having rehearsal and act like nothing was happening. Like I'm over there playing the keyboard like my whole life's about to end. I'm about to
them notes hard.
John not even playing the right song. John playing the
wrong key.
Wrong key. John. Come on, pay attention. So that was my situation. But let's go right into, because we want to hop right back into the topic that we had last week, because we had some great conversation. Hopefully you guys are aware, but if you're not, you can follow our Facebook page right now. You can hop off of wherever you are, and if you're on YouTube, go on to the Facebook page, follow it, because under our post on Facebook, our Facebook page, we have a link. That's right. We have a link. So if you want to join in on the conversation that we're going to have today, click that link and it's going to take you to our studio, and then we can bring you into the conversation. We're going to have a conversation it's going to be one of the best episodes I think that we're ever going to have. If you guys hop into the conversation, if not, you'll just be hearing us talk about whatever we want to talk about. So it's that simple. So like I said, follow the Facebook page and click that link. It's going to put you in the stream once we open it up for a conversation. But before we do any of that, we got my man Terrence. He has The Earth is Ghetto. Go ahead, T.
Yeah, man, listen, as I keep saying this every time I turn to TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, whatever it is, and I just realized if a meteor were to strike right about now, God, I understand. Like I totally, you know what? I can't even get mad at you.
Yeah.
This was one, and John sent this joint.
Go ahead. Want me to play it now?
Just play it. Like.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
So that's that one.
So I just I want to pause because we all hate overdraft fees.
We do.
We all hate overdraft fees. I just want to know at what point does an overdraft fee do I hop over the counter?
You know when it is? Do you know when it is? When you give them $200 and you got $199 in overdraft fees, and they say, "Yeah, give me that.
Run me that money."
I'm just. If you go to jail, number one, they took your overdraft fee.
Yeah.
Then you got to post bail.
Yep.
So whole time she hops over the teller window.
Yep.
Tries to get her money back.
Mm-hmm.
The teller is like, "Yo, you can't be back here." He actually like
he's already back there.
Yeah.
He's already back there. So it's like I know you might think you can't be back here, but let's be very clear. Yeah. He's back there. Okay.
Hey, but you kind of see him try to like approach her, or they like ended up tussling or something, and she kind of like bucked at him like, "Yo, back up. What you think you're doing?
Man,
I want my money."
Sis was not playing about them overdraft fees, and I actually appreciate that energy. So next time, Chase is either going to build a bigger barrier, or they're going to run them that money back. They're like, you know what? Look, ma'am, listen, we're going to put a little bit towards your overdraft fees. You can pay on it. Just pay on it, okay? You don't got to pay the whole
that
thing.
At Bank of America. You try that at Bank of America if you want, or Waco. You try that if you want.
Yeah,
M&T ain't playing that. I'm telling you that right now. You
so
hop across.
I don't know if you know. There was a rumor. I think Kevin on stage was the one that broke it, but he was basically saying that like they basically already as businesses they formulate plans around the overdraft fees, and so like they will literally like if you have a bunch of pending payments on your account, they'll push them through. Like you know what I'm saying, the higher cost ones first, and to make your account go negative. And then you'll have that, at $30 insufficient funds fee or whatever. And they actually plan that within their budgets.
Why do you need my $35 that bad? Like legit. Obviously, I'm struggling. I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Do you really need my $35 that bad?
They don't care. They want that money.
Yeah. It's a smart. I mean, I just want to make sure we're all aware. So if you got things pending and you waiting for things to drop off, or I'm just saying it's going to likely hit your account because they've made algorithms that are like going to push it through. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, man, that's tough. You had another one too, right?
Yes. Now this one was epic. I just want you to play the joint. If you have not seen this, I think this came out like 2 weeks ago. This one is last week, early this week. This was great.
All right, here we go.
Talk to the manager. Okay, 1 second. Hi, how can I help you? What the fuck is your problem? I just my problem is just you. You came in here acting like you own the place. I want to rent a yacht. Does it look like we have yachts? I see them all around there. We don't have any yachts for rent. I see them. Whose yachts are they? They're personal yachts. You don't want to make no money here at this restaurant. I guess we don't. Well,
you just go back to the beginning.
What the hell are you doing? You cannot talk to the manager. Okay, 1 second. Hi, how can I help you?
It's the dip in the squat for me. Yeah. Straight face too.
Oh, no. Oh my god.
Shit.
Wait. So this wasn't acted out. That was a real life.
That was a real encounter, bro.
Yeah.
That was a real encounter. That grown woman or child dips down, turns around, comes back up, and
she was still in camera when she dipped. Like she didn't even had a nerve. Like at least fade out the camera totally. No, you could still see her. Like,
but the lady should have got mad when she saw her start to dip. Like I would have been mad then. I would have been mad. Like no, get up. No, don't do that. Don't.
Right.
I still see you. I know it's still you. I would get upset then. I wouldn't even wait till she finished.
I would have been looking for a staircase or something. I was like, is the manager down? Like, what
sure, hold on.
It's great.
Yeah, that was great.
That's really good, man. Is that all for the?
Yeah, that's it. Like I said again, this is proof. This is proof that the Earth is in fact ghetto. Like,
the Earth is in fact
ghetto.
Trash. And actually, you know what? That's a great transition statement into Joe Biden handing out crack pipes for Americans.
No, say it ain't so.
Oh yeah, Joe's like, man, I got y'all, man. Whatever y'all need, I'm your supplier. You know what I'm saying? So if you heard about it earlier this week,
Hustle Man Joe.
Yeah, Mr. Joe Biden. Now I couldn't even find anything more about it because basically it seemed like they kind of they washed the internet of that story. But they have it here where the health department basically is like saying it was misinformation or misleading about the entire drug paraphernalia. Basically, the $30 million that are going to be paid out or whatever grant that was going to be made for drug uses. Basically, they're saying, as far as from the government stance, they were just saying that they wanted to like protect Americans. And they're trying to make sure that people don't get bad needles and stuff like that. And that it was basically misinformed. So they're saying, it says here, these comments are misleading and misinformed. Too many Americans have lost their lives to drug overdose. Evidence-based community harm reduction services such as naloxone, I don't know, fentanyl test strips and syringe services programs help people stay alive and are proven strategies for addressing their tragic epidemic. So basically, it came out that it was this big grant or whatever that was going to be like for crack pipes, but maybe that was misinformation. But even when it broke, it was a big deal. So we at least wanted to highlight that. I don't know if y'all had any thoughts.
Was this fact checked at all? Like, because I know Fox News was ready. Like it was. I bet you if you go to Fox News right now, this story is definitely still up there. Like,
yeah,
they were ready. Like,
yeah.
Hey, Michelle gonna say I'm still waiting on my STEMI, and they got crack pipe money.
Listen,
yeah.
Like
every time I see stuff like this come out, I'm like, yo, I just sit back. We was at work, and I was just like, you know what? There was nobody else to vote for. Like, I can't.
Anybody else.
We didn't have anybody else. There was no other way. There was no other option. But every time I'm just sitting like, dang, was Trump really that bad? Like stuff like this.
Oh, you start reconsidering.
Like,
I honestly, Terrence, if I'm honest, I've had that same thought. But then I go back to when he was throwing paper towels at citizens, and I think
about that.
I think back about that, or when he did his pose in front of the church with the Bible.
Yeah,
I thought about that. You know, so I was like, every time I want to be like, man, Biden's awful. I'm like, man, but Trump was also awful.
But listen, if he has this kind of mentality, if he we're not going to get rid of drugs, we're just going to make them do it safer. What else? Like, you know, we're gonna get rid of crime people. We're not gonna get rid of these gangbangers. Yeah. We're gonna give them legal guns. So like, here's the legal guns. We're gonna put more. Like, where does this mentality stop? Like, what else are you gonna do? Like, you know, what else?
I just think Joe should just go and pause until after. Just chill out for a little bit. Let's not do anything right now. At least while this climate is where it is. Like, we're watching too much and we're seeing too much. We everything we're seeing is like, this is not good for you. It's not looking good for you.
Bad. He's not running again. He's absolutely
not. He definitely shouldn't if he is thinking about it. I think he's done. I think I don't want to even go into politics, but I think he's done. I think he should be done. All right, like he's losing even now. All right, so as we transition to the next part of this topic, another person that was done earlier this week, Mr. Joe Rogan. Apparently, it's bad for anyone named Joe. Rogan, Joe Biden, it don't matter who it is.
That's it.
It's just Joe's. I hope you don't have any Joes listening to podcasts right now because, you know, it's not looking good for you. But here's some of the stuff that broke down earlier today this week.
I think he did a fine job with his apology. Mm-hmm. He said a lot of the things I would want to hear someone say. The thing that stuck out for me most was when he said, "It's not my word to use."
Right.
And I think change behavior is what we're really looking for. If it went all the way to allyship, that would be wonderful. But also, change behavior would be wonderful too.
So this is the apology from Joe.
Friends.
I'm not going to play it all.
I'm making this video to talk about the most
regretful and shameful thing that I've ever had to talk about publicly.
So basically, he apologizes. Moving on there.
I want to leave a short
This
message
is
here
what
about why I decided.
Hold on, let me stop it there. This is what initially happened. This is what initially happened.
Because I missed what actually happened.
Yeah, let me explain it. I'm sorry. So NDRE basically revealed that Joe Rogan had this whole like thing about using the N-word. Like he used the N-word a bunch of times in his podcast.
It wasn't just one time. Like it was
like a lot of videos.
It was a lot. No, it wasn't one time. It was a bunch of different videos that were edited or whatever over his 11-year span or whatever of doing radio. And so he was saying in his apology, just so I can wrap like the whole thing up. He was saying in his apology, it was like him using quotes from other situations, and it was kind of taken out of context. Although it was never a reason to use the N-word, he was using the N-word then in those situations, not to just be like, oh, that's my end, or whatever. He was it's more like contextually, that's not how it happened. But then that video came out with NDRE, where NDRE kind of blasted him, saying she's gonna take her music down from Spotify because she was like, I don't want to be on the same platform with Joe Rogan, who got $100 million from Spotify to be on Spotify. I don't know how long the period of it is, but he got $100 million to be on Spotify or to be represented by them or whatever. So she didn't want to be on the same platform with him. So she said, take all my music down that Joe Rogan's on. And long story short, Joe Rogan ends up apologizing to everybody for using the N-word over and over again. And she says basically at the end of that, she accepts his apology. People are joking and saying she had a check written to her, to accept the apology. But what I will say is that anyone that understands the music business understands that people don't really get paid a lot of money. Even people like NDRE or whatever, like if that's a big part of their revenue source, literally it's like 0.01 cents on plays and 0.001 cents. It's like fractions of a penny per play. Yeah. So when she took her stuff off of Spotify, that was a good portion of her residual income. So it was actually kind of bold for her to do that, but only for her to do it for a week kind of made me kind of laugh, because I was like, okay, so she was like, maybe I was kind of flowing in the moment, got a little emotional. And then once he apologized, like, all right, I could put, maybe I don't know, but I don't know if she put her music back on Spotify.
Yeah, I was about to say,
did she own her stuff? That's besides the point. I don't know if she owned her stuff. I like what I'm with what Jeremiah said. Like I heard that quote. He was like, he went to a movie theater. It was like He said it was like Planet of the Apes. It was so many black people there, and like, bro,
yeah, he did. Like, that is true, Jeremiah. Thank you for that.
I actually like said this to some friends. The crazy part is, there was another channel that offered Joe Rogan $100 million to come onto their network, to leave them and come on them. So it was almost like it is beneficial to say the N-word. Like it legitimately, it's almost like beneficial to be racist. Even the guy who was the guy who got off, the little kid who got off for killing those people, and politicians.
Black Lives Matter.
The Black Lives Matter protest. It was politicians saying, "Hey, we offered you internships." So it's like it's rewarded to be racist. It's like that's the thing now, and so it's almost like, and I almost say this. I almost want to say is that really is the Trump effect, the Trump impact, because not saying it was ever shunned, but it was never as widely accepted until we got Trump.
Yeah, he gave a stage for it. Like he gave the green light.
Yeah, man. Like he's still out doing like, doing campaigns, and it's just crazy. Like, so Joe, he's not gonna get canceled. He'll get canceled here and gonna get accepted someplace else. Either way. So it doesn't really matter. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like,
I don't know. I don't have that strong views. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
I think it's just unfortunate, man. I mean, we go around this topic all the time in reference to like racism and the stuff that people say, not just about black people, but I'm talking about overall, like whether it's to any culture, any ethnicity, right? But I just don't understand. Like I can't fathom like where we're going from here. Like it's been around this long. It's unfortunate that it's been around this long, and people are like being more, I guess, open with it now, especially like after Trump, like you were saying, T. So it's like it's sad, bro. It's sad.
So here's my only problem with this entire conversation. Joe Rogan he been said these things, right? Yeah. This surfaces, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, okay? But this surfaces not long after he had the misinformation of the people that he had on his podcast talking about the C, the O, the V, and the 1-9. I'm not gonna say it on here because I don't want to be no censorship issues. But that once that was stated, and once he kind of gave the other side of the coin of the mainstream narrative, Not long after that, this video surfaces. These weren't recent clips. These were clips that were kind of created over time. So I can't unsee that. Like, he says a thing about, something that was the non-mainstream narrative, and then next thing you know, this clip kind of comes and surfaces, and it becomes this big deal, and now everybody wants to cancel Mr. Joe Rogan. So, and I'm not excusing his usage of the word. I'm not like but I'm also like, I'm kind of getting a little bit over. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm kind of getting over the whole N-word. Like, I'm not really like, I know you're saying it when I'm not there. Or I know you're probably saying it at home. I know you're probably saying it in other spaces. So, like, for you to just say it on radio or not, it's kind of like, it don't really matter to me because I really know what you think and feel. I feel like,
Mm-hmm. So that reminds me of a conversation I was having with some of my coworkers a few months back, and I think something else that came out within the news where somebody had said something, whether it was a racist comment. It wasn't towards like blacks, but I think it was like Jewish, or I can't remember who it was, and she might have been like a part of the Senate or something. I just can't remember the entire story, but I remember the conversation, and what I brought up was like, hey man, like let's be honest here. Like, there are a lot of things that people say and do within their small social circles, right? As far as like different, I guess, biased comments, or like even like racist comments, like, and not even the sense of like, people say things jokingly based off of their interpretation of how a certain ethnicity acts towards different things. Like, if people were to say like all black men wear do-rags, or like if people were to say like all white men wear like thong flip-flops or something like that, you know what I'm saying? Like, stuff like that comes up in conversation. And I wanted to make it clear to folks, like, hey, let's not pretend like this is not a thing. Like, it's a thing. And the fact that this one person that was, in the limelight and has all this light and shined on her, and within the industry, within entertainment, within, whatever level of limelight that she's in, it's just highlighted at this point. But she's probably talking that stuff behind the scenes. So she's talking it within her small social circles or whatever like that, and it just got blown up. So to your point, John, like, like it's happening, and I'm not necessarily over it, but it's just like, let's not try to cover it up, or let's not fake like it's not a thing.
But he better not say nothing about them Jews. Just letting y'all know. We said that last week. Yeah, man. You say one thing about them,
you're done.
You're done.
Yeah.
You're done. And that was kind of the point of the, what was it, Whoopi?
Yeah.
Whoopi Goldberg situation, where she did say something about the Holocaust, and that went left, but it's funny also because, like, I'm like, man, how quickly are we over those things too? So it kind of made me laugh, just like not laugh, but be able to kind of like see how quickly people go from one thing to the next thing, get mad at it, whatever the case may be. So it just kind of made me think, like, man, this America is definitely interesting in that way. I had one thing I wanted to do before we jump into the topic. This is kind of the not well-traveled Black history information, if you will. So it's not like I'm really doing a tribute to Black history, but I'll say this. Alternative Black History Month fact. This here is Jim Jones and his fiance Chrissy. Jim Jones is a legendary rapper and member of Dipset. Him and his fiance has been engaged for approximately 14 years. Currently the longest engagement in African American history. Chrissy also is the first woman to propose to her man. Know your history.
She proposed.
She proposed to him,
and he said yes.
Wait.
And they've been engaged for 14.
Wait.
It's not his mom. That's the reason why he ain't done it yet. If it was his mom, like,
of course,
that was his mom tonguing him down.
Wow, too soon.
He'd have signed up. He'd have signed up.
Or she wasn't kissing right. That's the issue.
She's not kissing right.
Yeah,
not kissing right.
He went back to mom. Was like, Mom, she ain't kissing right.
she ain't the one. She don't kiss nothing like you.
Now what if I told you, baby? Say no.
14 years is not that long.
If they don't use the tongue, 14 years is a long time to be engaged.
It's not that long.
Terrence Bartholomew Robinson.
It's not that long, yo. 14 years is like,
you could have a whole 14-year-old child Your child is 14. If you met her and smashed,
And
that baby will be a teenager.
Think about the
By the time
benefits. They don't got to be the flower girl. They could actually be your maid of honor. So
they gonna be
there's so many
there.
benefits to that. Like, if I had my son, he's not gonna be a ring bearer. He's actually going to be next to me.
Parent.
Like that's
there's nothing you can say that will
explain.
The
glass is half full, yo. The glass is half
this woman will not let him go for 14 years, Terrence. I think at that point she's probably like, my self-respect though. Like I asked him.
Yeah, you gotta be disrespected after that.
What?
Like, come on, man. 14 years.
14 years is a long time.
I'm sitting here imagining, like, if I proposed to Renee and she was just like, it's not a good time for like 14 years, or like, hey, we ain't got the money for 14 years. Like, let's keep in mind who he is, right?
Like, y'all only got her side. You don't got his side. It's got to be reasons.
I like that you're the person. You're the contrarian today on the podcast, because it's not usually it's me. I'm glad it's you, because you're a freaking
clearly
fool.
it's in this title, right?
Yeah,
I'm right.
Like, maybe,
yeah. 14 years. I think 14 years is safe. It's a safe bet. I think actually that's a great question. How long is too long to be engaged?
Not 14. Obviously not 14.
14 years is not. That's not the number.
Let's check 2023. If they're still, then at that point, all right,
that's when you draw the line in the sand.
That's solid 15.
I think. Okay, so are we saying 10 years is too long to be engaged? Let's just say that's
John. 2 years is too long to be engaged.
To be engaged?
Yes, I think 2 years is too long. Like,
I think I was engaged for 2 years.
That's long.
I was almost engaged for 2 years. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think 2 years is that long. And the reason why I say that is because there are so many different things that involve the whole marriage ceremony thing. Like, people want things done a certain way. They want to make sure all their family's there. They want to make sure it's at a particular venue.
Thank you, Angela. They're already married. See, you don't even need. You know what? They're already married. That's what Jim Jones is thinking.
What is it? After 10 years or something like that in certain states, like you're just.
You're together, but if the state's like, nah, y'all married.
How you know it's Hersh? Maybe he gave a prenup and she don't want to sign it.
Terrence, can you stop? You think you can stop? Maybe.
Oh, God.
Maybe. Possibly.
Just a little bit.
So anyway, if you guys were here last week, man, we talked about a great topic. And the topic was leading with the D. What do men bring to the table? Do they bring their cucumbers or their eggplants to the table? Because I didn't want to say the D word. So that's the first thing no. Carrots to the table.
Apparently that was trending.
Carrots to the table. Or do what do they bring to the table as men? And so we want to kind of pick it up. And like I said to you guys before, if you want to join on the stream, we definitely want you to do that, because we want to hear your opinion, want to hear from you. The best way to do that is to hop on our Facebook page if you're not already on Facebook. And I put on our Facebook page a link, and all you do is click the link. It'll bring you into our studio. We'll bring you into the show, and we can have a conversation as a community, a podcast community together. But bottom line is, we kind of got to a place where the comment section kind of went out of hand. And we wanted to make sure that we at least address some, if not most of the things that were discussed. So let me play for all of us to kind of recap where things were as far as the young lady that sparked everything off for this conversation. And we'll go from there. Here we go.
There are men that will leave comments that say things like, why do women not know this? I'm glad you're breaking it down, but this is common sense. These are grown women. And guys, I want to explain why. But ladies, I need you to listen too. So guys, you're taught at a very young age how you should be to girls, right? So when you're a little boy and you see a cute girl and you like her, you know to be kind to her, polite to her. You do all this stuff for her. Some of y'all may write little love letters, leave little gifts for her, open doors for her. You're taught this, right? By women, but you're taught it. And with that being said, guys, you also learn that it doesn't matter how kind you are to a girl. If she don't want you, she don't want you. You learn that very young as a boy. Now, when it comes to women, when they were girls, all they ever had to do was exist. The fact that they were a girl was going to give them options. Didn't matter if she was super duper cute. Didn't matter if she was all right and average. Didn't matter. All she had to do was exist. She didn't have to change anything. She didn't have to do any work. She didn't have to do anything because she's going to always have options. As girls become women, young women, they start learning the older they get that what they did as a girl, as a young woman, doesn't work anymore. This is why it has to be explained. Because women have never had to do anything. They weren't held accountable for anything. This is why it had to be broken down. This is also why women want control. See, women will get on this app and they will say, I want men that do this, 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 and this. And he got to take me the way I am. And he got to love me for me. Women will say all this stuff. And if a guy says anything remotely close to that, now he's controlling. Now he's a narcissist. This is why. They got to be taught different. So that's why I'm here. This is why I do these videos. Because it's all about changing the mindset. We have to change our mindset, ladies. Because, yeah, we've been taught we're the prize. And the truth is you gotta work. And you gotta move. And you gotta change some stuff. This is why.
All right. So you guys, that was the recap of everything. That was the recap of everything that was kind of discussed. And I already have one person already in the queue that, that wants to probably join in into this conversation. I'm looking forward to the dialogue. But before we bring them in, I want to also say, young ladies, women, we want to have your opinion. So you guys had a lot of energy. All right. Last week, y'all was like, she ain't right. And this is why she ain't right. And let me tell you another thing, John, Terrence, and Mike. Okay, y'all were going all the way in.
They was definitely going in.
They was going all the way in. So I'm like, I remember saying, yo, keep that same mother loving energy. Keep that same energy as we have this conversation. So before we bring in our first person, I want to add one more part to this entire conversation, and then we'll bring in the next person. Let me see. Let me bring it up here. Sorry, I got to play around. This is the next one. I think Terrence, did you send me this? I think Terrence wanted me to do this one.
Yeah.
And some of y'all thought processes. How's a man asking what a woman can bring to the table a red flag? When you're dating a man or you're getting to know a man, don't you ask him about himself to see how you both are compatible and how he can benefit you? You're going to ask questions like, do you have a job? Are you good with saving money? You're going to ask them a list of questions I'm sure many of you have. And it's the same with men. The only difference is a lot of men can take care of themselves. They can cook, they can clean, they can do all that. What most men are looking for are those intangible traits like peace, nurturing, being caring, being his pillar of rest and not his pillar of stress. There's nothing wrong with a man inquiring about a woman to make sure that they're compatible and on the same page. And quite frankly, if you think that, then I think the huge red flag is on you.
All right. Was that the one, T?
We can go with that one. That's
let's
perfect.
go with that one.
Let's go with that one.
Let's bring in our first guest. And listen, guys, if you want to join the conversation, Mike went ahead and put the link there within the thread. It's on Facebook page. There's no excuse. There's multiple ways to hop into this stream and have this conversation with us men. Here we go. Let's bring in Mr. What's your name, sir? Do we know you?
I hope so. Jamal Calton.
What's up, Jamal, man?
I'm doing all right. Can you guys hear me okay? I
We can
perfectly.
Yeah. It's almost as if you have a podcast set up over there, actually.
Just slight.
We love it. So we had a lot of conversation last week, and I want to frame it out before we hop into this conversation. Clearly, you saw the clip about the young lady and men's perception of how it is within dating and marriage and all that good stuff. Where do you lie on this whole conversation? Who's takes the onus or ownership, and whose fault is it? Where are you on all that?
Well, I mean, there's a lot. I feel like this is layered. Like there's so many different elements. So, I mean, initially speaking, I would say it's the guy's fault. Like it's our responsibility to pursue women and to frame really how a relationship should go. Like we were designed to be the head. We were designed to be the leaders. And as believers, y'all know that. Like that's how it's supposed to be. And sure, there's been cultural influences that has impacted, especially in our community, that has completely jacked us up. Like there's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked through. And it's Like we have to take responsibility for that though.
Okay. I like that point, and I'm gonna be the person to do some pushback. So I agree with you to an extent. I've seen posts before, and this is the only way I can kind of frame it out, but I've seen posts before where they'll be like, if you as a husband aren't leading your family or whatever, you're not a good leader. But is there a certain level of ownership that a woman needs to take within following?
Well, I mean, I think that's again kind of loaded. Like you're gonna say like if a woman is saying, you're not being a good leader, and you're trying to say, well, you're not being a good follower. If you're not being a good leader, how is she gonna be a good follower? You know what I'm saying? Like,
who frames or determines out who is the good who and what is a good leader? Who frames that out?
I mean, again, from our perspective, it would be God. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
Right.
That
Let's say for instance, like yeah. I'm not saying we of course we're all Christians on here. We publicly have said and stated that. But for people that are not Christians, right? Sure, and they're just relationally dealing with each other. Yeah. And you're talking about the subject of, because I don't know if you guys saw, but the subject was ownership or own her. Yeah. And the conversation is like, do women have a part to play in this idea of relationally valuing each other and having some sense of ownership? Like what part do they play in that that partnership?
Oh, I mean, I think honestly, women have been playing their part. Like it still comes down to our responsibility. Like in them communicating what their needs are, that's them playing their part. Like in the design, if again, I'm the leader, in this relationship, I'm the man, I'm the husband or whatever. As even if you put it in a business kind of setup, if I'm the CEO and you guys, the wife is the employee, but even I don't even like that. That's still kind of distant.
I see where you're going. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying?
I see where you're going though. Yeah.
Right. If I'm the president, she's the vice president. Her role is supposed to identify areas that I have my shortcomings or where something's a little off. So I think in her communicating her position, how she feels, and like what the issues are, she's playing her part. Like she's taking ownership of her role. Like that's what she's supposed to do. She's supposed to be playing the support role. And then as a man, as a leader, I'm supposed to take that in, digest it, and then make the moves that I need to make. Does that make sense?
So I'm trying to figure out how to communicate my side too. Like I see the point that you're trying to make.
Yeah.
And you stated something around the lines of what I was thinking about, like, them like women playing their part as far as like communicating how they feel regarding your ability or our ability as men to be able to lead. But in reference to, I guess, the thought process of like their responsibility in being able to follow. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's kind of, I don't have the words for it, and I'm trying to figure out how to explain it.
My pushback is, well, I have two questions, because I'm not saying I disagree with the scenario that you presented, right? How does equality fit into that? Or does it? Let me just say that. Does equality fit in this equality between a man and a woman fit into your scenario dynamic that you presented?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. But let's be specific, or I guess can you clarify what you mean by, like, could you give?
So in your scenario where the guy's the head and the woman's the tail, but that doesn't fit that does not fit the current trend in society, especially American society, where there's equality and there is no head and there is no tail. So there's just two people and they're equal parts. And so my question is to anybody, but to anybody, does in the narrative that you present, does equality render its head? Because in that idea, there technically isn't equality. The guy he's in charge. The woman is not, and so therefore, if the ship is sinking, it's the president's fault that the ship is sinking.
Yeah,
and so because I'm not saying I disagree. The only problem I have with that scenario is there's no ownership for the vice president and for the other employees. It's like we get to do whatever we want, because if it's not working out, it's because we got bad direction. And that's the only part where I'm just like, I was growing up. I grew up with that mentality and grew up with that thinking. If something's wrong with the ship, it's the captain. Something wrong with the team, it's the coach. It's the owner. And then as I've gone through leadership and gone through whatever it is and gone through different tracks, I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily believe that anymore. Like I sometimes you got bad players. You got a horrible vice president. That's just what you say?
Lakers.
Yeah, like that's just not following. That's not following any direction that you set foot. So because like even like I presented the idea last week as believers, like God's the captain. God's directing. Sometimes we ain't following. It ain't on him.
Yeah,
it's us.
Yeah.
You know, and so in that I think that kind of mirrors down even to the household. Like, you know, sometimes, you know, and so I guess my question is where does a woman have to have ownership?
Yeah, I mean, I think again with this topic, it's layered, and also like I think on both sides of the conversation, sometimes we're very idealistic. So like in this idea of like, well, is it going to be equal? We might have the perception of like, oh, I'm the man, I'm doing everything right, and then you know my wife or whatever, she's the one tripping, and then vice versa. It can be like, oh, you know, I'm the wife and my husband is wilding out or whatever. And I think what makes it complicated, because you can go situation by situation. So you can say like, yeah, I'm a stand-up husband. I do everything. I take care of my kids or whatever. And my wife is, you know, she's had infidelity in our marriage or whatever. And then the reverse can be the case. I think it becomes an issue with this topic online of like gender war or whatever, because it really doesn't make space for nuance on either side. So if you have this red pill community, they're all, from what I've heard from the stuff, you know, the content that I've seen, it's coming from the perspective like, I'm the man and I'm right. And like everything that women are saying, they're wrong. They're either too feminist or they're aggressive, and they're saying all this negative stuff. And so then you have women who come into the platform to try to have a conversation or arguments with, we'll say Kevin Samuels, and like it's not going to be fair because he's already coming from the perspective of like, I'm right.
100%.
Like anything you say is going to be wrong.
So it's like a lack of introspection at the end of the day.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, again, like even not to give him too much attention, but like as a man, like I wouldn't want any advice from Kevin Samuels. Like if I'm trying to be in a relationship or I'm looking for marriage advice, from my understanding, that dude has not been in a successful marriage. He's
zero.
Like, right. So like, why would I take advice? Like he's clearly coming from a place of either a spite or resentment or just like anger towards women and his past experiences. And that's not balanced. Like, yes, there's a lack of introspection. And I think a lot of the trouble comes from as men, we're like trying to communicate our feelings and express ourselves. And again, it's oftentimes coming lopsided because in us expressing ourselves, we're not very often having an opening ear to actually hear from the vice president or to hear from women. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Now I would say, okay, that's our responsibility, right? That's a part of our responsibility to be able to have that introspection, but it should be reflected on the women's side too. Like that's a responsibility for both of us.
Yeah.
It's not just about, I guess, the lens that we're displaying our feelings and emotions and like our gripes from, but also like from their lens too. But it's kind of hard, even on both ends, to be able to see the other person's perspective because of how we're built, right? Yeah. Just as like man's thought process versus women's thought process, even like from a, I guess, like I guess chemical situation that goes on in the brain and like how we interpret our environments and stuff, like women being like, I guess the estrogen and emotions and things like that versus men and vice versa to that. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, I mean,
sorry,
go
go ahead.
You
good.
Okay. I have a little pushback against that because, like, yes, I agree. Like, we're definitely genetically and chemically created differently, and that's for a purpose. That's for us to work together. You know,
Right.
again, president and vice president supposed to, like, that's why they're good at what they do, and vice versa. I think a lot of the issue, though, oftentimes is that as men, especially as black men, we haven't been trained to effectively relate well, even to other people. Like we have been neglected oftentimes with emotional intelligence, with communication abilities. Like there's so much that we've been deprived of that has come from the negativity and the brokenness in our culture. And it sucks because, like, again, it makes it lopsided then, because often women are constantly trained, even genetically, to be able to communicate effectively. And like we have to play catch up.
I disagree there. Here's why I'm pushing back. I'm pushing back. Like, so I actually agree with everything you said, 100%.
Yeah.
I saw a very dope video, and I wish I had it to send it to John, or send it to the podcast the other day. And it was actually a guy talking, and he was actually kind of since holding men accountable. And he was just saying, and it's something that I've said for a long time, that men and women, they both communicate. We just communicate differently, 100%. And the issue is, and the reason why relationships and men and women clash, and I've asked this question for like at least the past 2 years. I don't know when men and women became at odds with each other, at war with each other. I know for a fact we're the cause of it. Makes it like with the how dominant men were, and you know, just the abuse of power. We're the cause of it, right? So that much I do know. But the issue is right now in social media and relationships and TVs, movies, men and women are just at odds with each other.
Yeah.
And within your personal relationships, the clash comes when we don't realize that in the moment of a debate or frustration, a man and a woman, their initial go-to is to communicate how they're designed to.
Yeah.
So for a man, it's logic. It's just complete logic. And for a woman, it's complete emotion. It doesn't mean the woman will never communicate logically. It doesn't mean that the man will never communicate emotionally. But in that moment of frustration, we see logic. And the woman, she sees emotions. It's how she feels. And so what the guy was basically saying is, so as it's when you want to be to be better at your dynamic with your spouse or your partner, you have to see it, not you're trying to push logic to her in that moment. I want you to see this logically, because if you look at it logically, it doesn't make sense. Why would you even say that? Why would you be frustrated with me? Because your point doesn't make sense. It logically doesn't make sense. However, she's not thinking logically. She's in her feelings. And so in that moment, you need to figure out how she feels. Like, how does she feel? And if you, the more you as a man, you do that and to embrace how she feels, you can, in a sense, begin to communicate on her level. And then, I've always thought that, because it's just nothing we can do. We will never be able to communicate the same. We're just not designed to do it. And we need to stop pushing each other to do it. Like, a man communicates this way, a woman communicates this way. And so when you see their side of it, it usually begins to at least smooth down and I say better the communication. Okay, cool. She's in her feelings. So let me just at least see how she feels. And if think about it from vice versa, okay, he's thinking about this logically. So let me get out my feelings for a second as a woman. Let me calm my feelings and let me think about it from his perspective logically. And when you start to do that, what you should see is a more successful relationship, because each person is now lending their lens to the conversation the way their partner would look at it. And so I do agree that men, especially black men, have been raised to communicate horribly emotionally. I agree with that 100%. I think we are horrible. We're not as emotionally mature as women. My only pushback is I don't think women know how to communicate effectively with men. I think women know how to communicate effectively with other women. I do not think most women can communicate effectively with other men, which is why men can tend to communicate effectively with men, and women can tend to communicate effectively with women can communicate effectively with other women. I don't think either one of us are trained to communicate effectively with each other. And part of the clash in marriage is that you're spending so much time with someone of the opposite sex, more than you've ever had to, that you are beginning, now you're kind of forced to learn how the other partner communicates. And so that's just my viewpoint of seeing it. I don't, it's very challenging, in other words. It's just a little pushback, you know?
No, yeah. I mean, I agree. Like, it's definitely challenging. Like, it requires work, and I'm not saying that it doesn't require work on both sides. Like it's as you know, all of us are married, so like it definitely took, I'm sure, a long time to get to a place where, like, you know what, we can actually have a conversation and we're not yelling at each other, or you know, like it's gotten to a place where like we can effectively communicate. And I hear what you're saying, Terrence. I just think like I don't know, maybe because again, like coming from the perspective, like it's a very it's lopsided. I would say this whole conversation can oftentimes be lopsided, you know.
I'm not sure. I mean, I hear what you're saying. All the stuff that I've heard so far has been good. I will say the Kevin Samuels thing is always viral, right? It's always visceral. It has this kind of connotation with it. But I also think he does provide some sense of truth to the things that he layers with a bunch of fluff. Like there's a lot of stuff in there, and it's you know, you got to kind of like, you know, sift through it, of course. But there is some sense of truth to some of the things he says, and I'm not going to go caping for him right now in this conversation because I don't have. That's not the point. I think another thing that as I was hearing you guys talk about it from a perspective of listening and all that, in terms of like men to women, I do have to. I agree with Terrence. I think men are wired to agree with men and understand men because we think the same way, the same pathway, and so do women, and that's why you'll catch a lot of posts on social media and whatever, like, yeah, girl, I did that, and a lot of girls are like, yeah, rah rah rah, and a lot of men are like not saying nothing because they're like, man, she tripping, like, you know, but we're not going to say it to them because we just have a different way of processing our thoughts and feelings. So we may not put it on social media, or we may not even tell them what we really think about what their post is on social media because we're less emotionally driven. You'll rarely see, and this is broad strokes as always, but you'll rarely see a man emotionally charged to Facebook and go off. It just doesn't happen as common as you'll see a woman emotionally charge off and go on Facebook. I'm not saying it's perfect.
It just won't be for, you know, something that we find embarrassing or something like that. Like people will go crazy about sports. That's
right.
Emotionally driven.
Yeah.
Like they'll be on their long threads.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's
100%.
emotionally driven. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like we'll see it, but we've gotten to the place where we're like, one is more acceptable, and,
right.
and that comes from our perspective. So yeah, like if somebody wants to go on and drag whatever team or whatever player or whatever,
right,
for long threads,
right,
we see, oh, that's okay. They're just passionate about sports. But if a woman wants to express her feelings about a trash dude or somebody cut her off in a car, now it's just like, she got issues.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And so as far as the ownership piece, though, I do still believe as a man should be the head of the house. I do believe a man should lead his house. I do believe in a paradigm of a man should learn how to be the head of the house. I should say it like that, because I don't think it's something that you just are. You become. You are as a constant becoming, right? Or learning and restructuring and refiguring it out. So it's not a thing of I'm a man, therefore I am the head. Like I don't think it's that. I thought it was that way, but it's not that way. I want to dismantle that myth as well. But I also feel, though, the part of the truth of which this lady is saying is that, and it may seem, I guess, as though women don't seem to have as much adversity in the sense of like having to conform and change and transform who they are all throughout their lives. Now, I'm not saying that's not true, or that is true. I'm not saying that it's true or not true, is what I'm saying. I'm saying for the most part, men are constantly in that dating, what she was referencing was, I was reflecting back when I was dating. Like my mom would be like, "Oh, you need to get this for your girlfriend. You need to do this. You need to please her. You need to do that to make her happy. You need to do, you know, these are the man roles, the gender roles you fit within to make this woman happy." And you know, and like kind of going with Terrence's point, you're kind of like created to go do this thing this way, and then you get a little bit older and you realize that's not really the way of the world necessarily, right? Like it actually could be more of a co-mingling of we're both holding responsibility and not just me all the time. And then there is a certain sense of like, well, what will you own within relationships and with dating? There has to be a sense of like, if I'm owning this, then you got to own that. There is a sense of that, because if you don't learn to own something, then you don't grow.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think again, it probably would have been great if there was a lady on here.
They won't come. Like, hold on. Where your wife at, Jam?
She's at a retreat actually. So
okay.
She's part of something. So she's
of course. No, I'm just kidding. No, but great. So Jamal, how long you been married? Because I don't know. Like, let's all know how long you been married.
In October, it will be 6 years.
6 years in October.
I thought it was longer. Jeez.
Yeah, I did too. So 6 years in October. And so go ahead with what you were saying. I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. I think it even the idea of ownership, like, okay, so using this example, like what you were just talking about, what would be something that you feel like your wife needs to own that she doesn't own already?
So there was a point where like when we were first dating, and the thing that I wanted her to own then was like owning the fact that you feel the way that you feel, and your I guess not obligation, but your responsibility to communicate that to me, because I'm not a mind reader. Right. So but I am really good at reading body language. And if I see that something's like different, I'm gonna approach you about it. I'm gonna communicate about it. But if you sit back and tell me, no, I'm fine, that's a lie. I know you're not fine, because there's just something about you that's off. Right. Now, granted, if you don't want to talk about it, then tell me that. Like, be upfront with your feelings. Be completely honest with me about your feelings right now in this moment. You might not be ready to talk about it. Cool. And
that's logic. That's the logic. That's the logic talking. That's literally how, like, I'm not saying all men are like that, but that's literally how most of us are wired. Like, so I see that side of it. Makes sense. But I see the other side too. So I'm waiting for Jan. I see the other side. I see the other side too. You should know what you did was wrong. You should know you know. I see the other side of that coin. So
yeah, I guess to respond to what you said, Mike. Sorry, Dr. Mike. Like, in that situation, like, the roles will be reversed for me and my wife. Like, she's the one that says, like, I know there's something wrong with you. You need to talk. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I think that can be like that. I think that's a great example, and that's something that obviously you and your wife had to communicate and work through, so that you can. So, like, I guess what's a more general example that seems?
I actually think that is general. I think Jan, you might be a unicorn, but I actually which is good. Like, I'm not knocking Jan. Like Jan, like we've known Jan for. Like, I think that's a great thing, and I think across what a lot of times John says, like, what we say is it's broad strokes. It's like broad strokes. Yeah. But I do think memes and memes and GIFs and videos about this topic exist for some type of commonality.
They have some validity to it, right?
Yeah, like we're like, one thing I'm learning as I'm in therapy is that we have more in common than we do have different. And so I think so I'm like, if that's not the story for you, I think that's dope. And so it would be.
I will say too, like, life alters the gelling of the relationship, right?
Yeah, it can.
So and it depends on where you are on the spectrum. So when you're like dating, and then when you're married and it's just you married, that's different than married with one kid, and then married with two kids, and then married with three kids, or whatever the case may be, and then you're whatever case the situation is. So I say all that to say, when you're talking about in one season, where before kids, it's like, oh, I can own whatever, I can deal with whatever, because I have more ability, I have more, there's less going on, right? Like, when you have two kids or three kids, when the more kids you have, if you don't notice, it's harder to deal with any kind of situation. Like, my wife and I had a conversation earlier today, and it wasn't a great conversation. I wasn't mad, or like, it wasn't like volatile, right? But I'm trying to talk, and my youngest child is like, nah, nah, like making these annoying sounds, trying to like get my wife to pick her up. I'm like, man, it really is that way every single time we try to have a conversation, which is very difficult, right? So I would say personal development is hard, right? And it's in that environment. How can you work on yourself when you don't even have time to think about yourself, because you're always thinking about your job, then your marriage, then your kids? How do you begin to think about yourself? So if you're talking about something that's like
distractions in a way. I mean, not to call them like negative, but like it is.
No,
that's
not. Let me tell you something. And I think we as men have to do better jobs at talking about this. When you have kids, they are distractions. They are the thing that pulls you away from the one thing you're supposed to be trying to be about, which is your wife. They are that. They can be beautiful and all that too. Like, both two things can be true. They're beautiful and they can be distractions. They're awesome and they can be annoying. Like, but two things can be true. So I'm saying all that to say, though, personal development becomes harder, and an inability to be able to see oneself becomes harder
once those paradigms have shifted.
And I just want to highlight Michelle's quote, like this, that is tradition when women didn't work and pay bills. I think she was responding to something John said. And that was my point earlier. So I know that, and we may know that, but at what point if women are no longer traditional, and I'm not even talking about this is how my mindset, I'm just presenting a dynamic that's out there. Then if we're no longer traditional, then how do we shift as women no longer being traditional, but try to hold on traditional mindset of the man being the head and the woman being the tail?
Exactly.
Because that's traditional.
We never had there's an issue about it. We never had a conversation about the change.
It just happened.
It just happened. Women just, and so you're saying that's, and I hear what you're saying, Michelle. I agree. That's tradition.
Yeah,
women didn't work and they pay and pay bills. Now they work and they pay bills now, right? So do they still, like, is there still a subservience nature within the paradigm anymore too? Or did that change?
So that kind of goes back to what the young lady was saying in her post about like how men were training to do all this for women, and women are trained to like think that they are the prize. So let me see if I can get my words together. So like now that shift has changed as far as society, where it comes down to like women do work and women do pay bills and things like that. We need to get back to that, I guess, level of communication to say like, hey, we both have a responsibility. Men have a responsibility to their wives and vice versa, to ensure that their spouses are being like their needs are being met. Right. Mm-hmm. Like we shouldn't be the only ones like constantly buying the flowers or constantly making sure everything's good, or having the responsibility of like making sure all is well within the household, like within our relationship. But the women should also have that responsibility too, to ask and communicate and be like, hey, so an example of that is like every top of the year for the past few years, I've asked Renee we've had a conversation about putting on a vision for this year to say like, hey, let's make sure we're being intentional about our marriage. Like that's something that we always try to keep in mind at the top of the year, to figure out what our goals and stuff are, to be able to meet not just individually but collective as a unit. Let's make sure that we're talking to each other about like, hey, how did I do as a husband last year? Or like how did she do as a wife last year? And we try to make that a monthly thing, even when we go out like on our dates and stuff, like just as a check-in, and be like, hey man, is there anything else that I could be doing? Like, are there certain needs not being met? You know, X, Y, and Z. So that's where it lies with like the responsibility part that I feel like, and again, broad strokes, because there are some women out there that do this, which is, you know, I'm thankful for them, and I'm thankful for my wife for being able to do that too. But broad strokes, as far as like women should get back to like being able to say like, or have that communication or have that thought process of like, I want to make sure my husband is being pleased, my spouse is being pleased.
Do you think even that concept, Mike? There are a couple of things that I wanted to comment on, but I'm going to start with that. Do you think that idea of trying to set a vision for you and your wife, you think that's common in most relationships, that men will sit down and do that?
I don't think so. And the reason why I say that is because I have to keep in mind the type of circles that I run in. You know, as being a Christian, I make it an effort to surround myself around Christian men, right? Like not just like Christian women and Christian men as a community, but specifically Christian men, because there are certain things that we are responsible for, right? There are certain things that like as a man we should be doing according to the word of God. And I need to be able to surround myself with people that are either doing that or striving for that same thing, so we can both be able to like converse and compare notes and whatever the case. But there are groups of people that I know that don't talk about vision for the year. And whenever we have that conversation, it's like it kind of makes them think like, yo, I should do that. Like I should have some sort of idea of where I'm going the next 5 years, or like within the next year, or within the next month. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, so, I think that's great. And I think that you even willing to initiate that for your wife, that's an example of leadership that I think any woman would be willing to follow under. And even in this continuing this conversation of like ownership and stuff like that, like you choosing to do that has an idea of personal development for yourself, but also for your wife. Like that is important to you and ultimately for your marriage. And I think in this whole conversation, that's not always the case. Like you kind of just mentioned, like nobody's really thinking about that. It's usually in a very selfish way. And I mean, even kind of transition to what you were mentioning, John, about, having the time to have personal development. And you feel that way, having a job, children, and a wife. Like, how do you think your wife feels? Like, do you think that she is able to create the time to make personal development for herself? If she's, I can't remember how old your children are at this point, but if they're young and she's constantly breastfeeding them or changing them or doing things like that, stuff that we can't necessarily we can't do we're not supposed to do, you know what I'm saying? But like,
see, that goes back into a false narrative, right? Because the reality is, at least for my household, the only thing I don't do is breastfeed, legit. You know what I mean? So, and that goes back to roles.
Yeah.
So that a perception could be, oh well, she's doing all this thing. No, she's very well helped. There is a space, and I'm not saying she does a lot. My wife does a lot. I don't want to make sure I'm being honest about it. But at the same time, I think I'm doing more than I ever thought a man would be doing in the house. If I'm honest,
that's good perspective. Yeah.
If I'm honest,
and I that's it relates to what Michelle just posted. She put like that post was full of trash. Women have been raised to cater to men since the Bible, but that's traditional women. So if women aren't like, I'm pushing back on that whole mindset, like, because I can say something about man, but that's traditional. So a traditional woman was raised to cater to a man. But if you're not traditional, you're being raised totally different. So how do you cater to a man? Like, so that's the reason why I think that topic of what you bring to the table is very valid. It's a very valid question. But it does not mean I am not understanding of why that statement gets eye rolls and gets like, oh my God, or I get why that statement has pushback. I'm not saying that I don't want to say that at all, but I liken that to the statement. Dang, what was the thought? I liken that to when women in a relationship ask a man, so what are we? What are we? And that statement from men gets pushback. And I never understood it either. It gets pushback like, here we go. She's about to ask, what are we? So she's trying. It does not mean what most men thought that statement means. That, as we learned in that podcast with those young ladies, that statement, what are we, is women literally trying to put a definition on what. So I need to know what box to put you in. I need to know where this is going. I need to know. I'm not saying I want to be with you. I'm not saying you want to be with me. I just need to know so that way I can govern myself accordingly. And so I think that's an equal statement to when a guy asks, I want to know what you bring to the table. And women, I heard pushback, well, if you've been dating me longer, you should know. No. But men aren't wired like that. Men aren't wired to just to know. Like, if a guy asks that, a real man, I'm not talking about these F boys that some of y'all be dating. I'm not talking about those weak. I'm talking about.
It's not like we're not just that. And I don't want to interrupt you, but it's not just that we're not wired. It's also like we want to know what you think you are doing to bring to the table versus like what we may even see. So I may think I see what you're bringing to the table, but I want to confirm that whatever you think you're bringing is what I see.
And does it meet the same values? Like,
are they congruent?
Yeah, because I'm pushing back a lot of times that whole idea. Well, because the lady said, well, he can cook for himself, he can do this stuff, which is that's especially true now, because traditionally a man couldn't. But
I would say most men still don't.
I can't. I don't know if I can't say most, Jam. I don't know, bro.
I'm in that kitchen. I didn't think I was gonna be in that kitchen, bro.
I don't know.
See, that's different though. There's a difference in saying I didn't think I was gonna be in that kitchen compared to like I'm like,
but I'm here.
I'm like, like for me, like my dad taught me, like I had to do something. That's I don't think that's the case. Like, and I would say for you, John, like you're like, I got to figure this out because I got to do what I need to do. Compared to like, no, like I've taught myself, I can take care of myself. I would think most guys, from what I've seen, they eat out. Like even if it's trash, like they'll easier to go to Chick-fil-A or McDonald's than actually say, I'm gonna meal prep. I'm actually gonna get some stuff and cook it up for myself. Like that again.
Is that a time thing, or is that Like, is that an issue of time, or is that an issue of not being able to? Like, because I'm wondering if that's an issue of just society, of just the way the work is designed, and there's a quicker option. It makes sense.
Yeah, that's layered. I feel like that's layered. But I get your point, Jam.
Yeah,
I get your
100%.
point because if you grew up, I guess, within a traditional household where women did most of the cooking and the guys went out and worked the most, or like they spent most of their time working, right? So it was convenient for them to be able to come home and have a meal ready or something like that. But this day and age, if you transition from that lifestyle, like seeing that within your household, and then you get older and you don't necessarily have that same, I guess, relationship status or whatever. Like if you're single, I mean, all right, you gotta make it do what it do. You gotta eat. So you know what I'm saying? You go out to Chick-fil-A, you do what's most convenient, because at the end of the day, you're still practicing within, I guess, that role of going to work, getting things done, getting bills paid or whatever, but I ain't coming home to no meal, so I gotta go get something.
And that's interesting that you said that, Jam, like, and Johnny said it, because like I had a stepfather, but I've actually never seen him cook ever in life. And my mom had a meal. I don't know how she did it. Yeah. She had a meal ready every morning, and she still does it every morning, every evening. She still cooks for him. And so he didn't teach me how to cook at all. I just watched my mom, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then I wanted to do it for myself.
All right, we got to wrap this, but I got to speak to this last one. Michelle says the problem is women got to work then cook. Yes, like I have to say this. Yes. And let me say it like this. And if I had to, yes, as well. Like, it doesn't matter. That to me, that don't matter about no gender. So, like, for instance, when we had our first kid, my wife was like, "Yo, I'm already tired. I don't know how we're gonna deal with a second kid." And then we had a second kid. She found capacity because she had to. She had to find capacity. And I think a lot of times we just be like lazy AF, honestly. Just lazy. Don't want to have to push ourselves a little bit more and be like, man, I got to get out here and do what I got to do because I'm tired. I worked all day and then I still got to go home and pick up the groceries and bring it and do all. Yeah, you do. Like that may be what's called of your life at that point, and it's okay. Like I just said, I did not think going into my life I'll be cooking nearly as much as I've had to cook. So what? You know what I mean? Does anybody really care? You just do what you got to do.
Well, I agree with you, John. Like, of course, like it can be seasonal based or situationally based. I think the problem with, again, this conversation in general is I don't think most people have that perspective, though. Like, it's very self-serving, you know? So it's not like, oh, I want to make sure this woman who's coming to the table or whatever, that she's actually going to do everything I want her to do for me. And I'm not even really going to talk about how I'm actually contributing or how I'm helping. Even you giving that example for, you and your family, like, sure, you didn't know that you would have to be cooking or doing whatever else that, you have to do for your family to take care of them. But because you love them, you're willing to find the capacity and make the sacrifice. In this conversation online, though, I don't think anybody's really talking about pulling up that capacity. It's more of like, this is my stance. You need to give me everything that I want. I'm not really going to do anything on my end. Just come to me with everything. But you're saying like, all right, babe, I love you. I understand this is where you are. This is what we got to do. I'm going to go out and do this. Even if it's like, I'm going to make sure to order food and pick up food, whatever, like you're working together. And I think even goes back to what you were saying, Terrence, about the equality thing. Like, even though as husbands, like we're leaders and we're held responsible, we can still be equal in that making sure everything gets done, and if there is a problem, because we are the leaders, we take the responsibility, but that doesn't mean we're not equal. I'm just playing that role. I'm playing the role of, I have to make the final decision. I have to make sure things are going this way, and
I know we got to wrap up. That's why I'm pushing on the word. And I'm not the one who's bringing that word. Generally, it's the woman who, and I understand why there's equality. And I agree with Michelle. I agree with Michelle's point about it shouldn't be expectation. I had to evolve myself on, if I don't have a traditional wife, I can't expect traditional things. That was my standpoint, period. And I had to evolve on that. I mean, but I was never a foodie, so I'm biased because I'm not a foodie person in general. That was never.
You get some chicken nuggets
I'm biased,
and you're fine.
I mean, not even that. It's beyond that. I'm just not even. I can just cook for myself. That never was a thing for me. But my point is, I don't think traditional men can expect traditional things if their wife is not traditional. Period. But I also think the same thing vice versa. If you're not a traditional woman, you shouldn't be expecting traditional things from your traditional husband. I think there needs to be a redefining of that role. And that I agree, Jam. I do think there's a place for where the man still being the visionary and the head and the leader fits into this idea as we shaped. But I think instead of equality, we should be talking about equity in a marriage. I think, and that's such a different topic than equality. And I think what I see women screaming sometimes is equality, when you ain't really talking about equality. Because if a guy was to break into this house who's much stronger with 3 dudes, I bet you're expecting me as the man to go fight that battle for you. Yeah. You know, and if I didn't, I should be. Oh no, I thought we were equal. You go first. You were downstairs first. You go first.
Did you hear that? And Terrence over there huddled with the
I got that out. Yeah, because it's equal, but we're not equal. Like we're not designed to be equal. It's equity. Like I am the strong. I am physically, most cases, stronger vessel. And
so can you break that down real quick? I know we keep talking about we got to go, but the difference between equality and equity,
equality means everybody's the same no matter what. Equity is about, so the best way to put it, equality is the goal, equity is the method. And so the idea is, so in other words, like equity is about you getting what you need and doing what you do based off of where you're at. So if I have a household where I make all the money, equality would say my wife should still pay the same amount of bills. She ain't got no job, so there ain't no equality. She ain't got no job. How she gonna pay the bills?
So equity is more so of like making sure the goal is still met.
Exactly,
but based off of like where your strengths and your weaknesses are.
Exactly. If she can't cook and you know how to cook, why is she cooking? Like she about to burn the house down. But equality says, well, you know, I should cook sometimes. You should cook stuff. No, actually, babe, I don't think you should ever cook. I got it. And that's okay. Then you find where she's stronger at, and that's like the equity. To me, equity is the tool to get where everybody's getting exactly what they need to thrive.
Methodology.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. And again, I know you guys said you got to wrap up, but this has definitely been a good conversation and it should keep going. But I think, Terrence, what you're saying, even the idea of equity, that I think adds more depth to the conversation in general, though, because like that then requires us to identify where has there been, I know typically say inequality, but like where has it been inequity? Because that becomes even more complex, and that actually may make the conversation harder, even when it comes to this regular community. Like, like that actually, yeah. But I think that's a really good point. Like trying to find equity amongst, and more specifically towards, you know, the Black community in our relationship with women. It's like there is a lot of work that needs to be done, you know, to deal with the issue of equity.
Michelle, you going in on this?
Yeah, I know, right? I'm there real.
If we working, we take care of home. If he working, we take care of home. I think, I guess we can button it with this. But I think the realities that I'm at least seeing from this conversation is that we're floating between two narratives or two different dispensations. Like we're saying, okay, previous one where it's like, oh yeah, like, you know, the old narrative of like, oh, I go to work and you know, I go to work and my wife will take care of home. Yeah. And then now we've transitioned into we both work, and how that looks like within gender roles, and add the fact of how you were raised, and add the fact of whatever expectations you have because of how you were raised, and how that influences your lens within your own marriage and how you treat your spouse and what you expect of your spouse, right? So it's like a bunch of, like you said at the entry point of this conversation, Jam. It's more layered than anything, because you're trying to peel back the layers of, okay, well, what do you think about this? And well, because I'm almost like, well, if I pay all the bills, does that mean that I should come home to a clean house of dinner and you sitting in heels and ready to go? Like what new expectations should I have of this new dispensation, right? Or this new time that we're in, right? Yeah. So I feel like we gotta, we gotta unpack that to some degree and like figure out, well, what are we doing? Are we going with the things of old, or are we transitioning to the things of new? And are you willing and ready to wrap your mind around that new thing to the point in which that you're going to, you know, work to be the spouse that I need and vice versa. So, you know, equity versus equality. Thank you, Terrence, for bringing that up. Thank you, Jamal, for being the brave soul, one of our faithful podcast listeners, you know, to just come on the podcast with us and have these conversations. We're looking to grow and understand. And we also, I think that's the one thing that we all have in common here is that we want to grow and understand and be better men for it and be able to have these conversations in our communities and in our houses or what have you. So the hope, guys, is that, you know, you guys could actually hop on these calls with us. I know you guys didn't do it today. Not most of the guys. I want to say more so to the women, because we do want to have a meeting of the minds. We might have to do it a different way. I was thinking we might have to do like a kind of like a panel where we have this conversation. We have actually invite guests on, and then we have it that way, maybe a Wednesday or something like that, or a Saturday or whatever, and just have the conversation in that format instead of doing it. We're just hoping that you guys will just push that invite button or whatever. But either way,
we need the women on, man. I mean, it's we enjoy this conversation and being able to have this amongst men, because like you said, John, like this is kind of how all this started, right? As far as like us taking accountability for being able to do that whole iron sharpen iron type thing, and making sure we're all striving towards being the best that we could possibly be as men. But if we don't have women involved in the conversation, then we're full steam ahead in one direction without gaining the other side's perspective.
Michelle said her hair not done, so she can't hop on. It's all good, Michelle. Cornelius, he said, "Can we get a part 2?" This is actually already part 2. So what we will do, I think, what will likely happen is that we'll try to figure out how to plan a panel situation.
No bonnets, absolutely.
Yeah, and you know what? Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Thank you, Michelle, for being mature enough to know that this podcast does not represent any bonnets on it. We don't play that here. Relentlessly Real Podcast. No, I'm just kidding. The bottom line is, though, guys, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Hopefully you gained some deeper knowledge. You were thinking maybe about the conversations that we were having here today, and hopefully we can be able to have more conversations going forward. But it won't be in this format necessarily. Like I said, I think we'll likely have a panel because we really want to have some women on here, and we want to get their understanding and hopefully our understanding, and we can kind of reach a consensus in some way. Any last words, Jam, before you hop off the podcast, bro?
No, I mean, I think you guys are doing a good job continuing to have this conversation, and I think it'll like, you're right, it'll be good to have a woman's perspective in the conversation. So yeah.
Jam, do you have a podcast as well?
I do. Sorry.
Oh wow, what's the name of it?
The name of my podcast is Dude Make Something, and it's about mental health and Black men. So
shoot, I didn't even know that. It's called what?
Dude Make Something.
Dude Make Something.
Yeah. So the idea is to try to use creativity as an outlet to help with your mental health, and so I try to talk about other things related to mental health.
Is it on iTunes? Where can you find it at?
Yeah. It should be. It's at least on Spotify. I know.
Okay. And what's the name of the podcast one more time?
Dude Make Something.
Dude Make Something. You guys heard it here first. I didn't even know. Jamal has his own podcast. It's no surprise here because you heard the setup. I was like, oh, he got a better setup than we do. So he has his podcast is called Dude Make Something. You already know this is Relentlessly Real Podcast where we discuss real, raw, and relatable topics. And then I just started my podcast as well, the Narrow Road Podcast. You can find it on Spotify, YouTube, and on iTunes. Yep. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for checking us out today. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. My name is John.
My name's Mike.
And because I am 7 at all times, I want to go back to early when Mike, I'm just not letting it go. You said it's hard on both ends. Just want to be very clear. Don't ever say that phrase again. And without pausing it.
Okay.
Just not acceptable.
All right. Terrence is 7 years old. He eats chicken nuggets and french fries for lunch. Anyway, we love you guys.
I'm right. John's wrong.